Hi, I'm Liz Naumovski, host of Finance is Personal. Since the introduction of the internet, our lives have changed dramatically. It has made things like banking, dating, shopping, and communicating so much easier and quicker. However, with all the improvements that the internet has made to our everyday lives, it's also made it easier for hackers and scammers to steal our identity, hack into our email, and install malware onto our computers. And what about bullies? Everyone is at risk, especially women and seniors. So what can you do to protect yourself? The bottom line is that it doesn't matter how smart you are, it's always about emotion and vulnerability. Joining me today to educate us on how to protect ourselves is Constable Jennifer Horner with Peel Regional Police. Constable Horner was an investigator with the Fraud Bureau for 6 years and is now currently assigned to Crime Prevention Services. This is such an important discussion as we never can protect ourselves enough with how quickly the world is evolving and changing. Constable Horner, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I actually think this is probably going to be one of the most important shows that I do. And you and I were discussing the importance of spreading the news about this show.
Yes.
And hopefully somebody will tell 10 friends and they'll tell 10 friends and this will go viral and everyone will be able to protect themselves.
Absolutely. Yes, there's definitely power in information and that information sharing.
So one of the key things we were talking about, fraud plays on 3 of our human characteristics, whether it's fear, ego, and greed. Explain how it's played out.
Well, ultimately, the scammer develops this sort of rapport, and in that, this plays on the vulnerabilities of these victims. And so in that, the victims are sort of played and pulled into this scenario where they're hurt both on a financial level and a emotional level.
Is there a classic profile of a fraud artist?
No, I think that being that it's so prolific in terms of the money that they can get, it's really anyone can potentially become a fraudster based on their greed or their need of money.
So I know you and I were discussing the fact that online dating is huge right now. Mm-hmm. So I want to spend a lot of time, probably the first segment, discussing the whole effects of online dating because it plays on your heart.
Yes.
And it plays upon love as well. And everybody wants to be loved and be in a relationship.
Absolutely. And I mean, online dating is something that people do. And I know that people have some success in it. So the reality is that there are these sites that offer these dating opportunities. So it's important that if anyone is utilizing these sites, that they understand that it's really knowing who you are talking to and speaking to. So recognizing that just because there's a picture, that picture may not represent that person who you're communicating with. I also think that they should be aware that when they are communicating with someone, typically we find in these circumstances of these romance scams, there's this instant connection where the fraudster professes their love within days and weeks. And they really pull the victim into this false sense of this grand love story. And then in that, the scammer may indicate that their job requires that they're out of the country. So when they first initially communicate, it's, I'm from this area, however, I'm actually on contract in an oil rig in the middle of some location. So that sort of explains either why they can't meet them in person. It may indicate why sometimes their communications is sporadic because they're apparently unavailable because of these contracts or these jobs that they have. And then also, they talk about in these jobs that they may have a lot of money. So they promise a life of affluence. That when they do come to Canada to visit them, that they'll have been retired and they'll have this large inheritance or this large winning. And so they spend weeks and months, unfortunately, grooming the victim to believe that all of these circumstances are true. They'll send documents that appear legitimate. They'll contrive fake passports. They'll use something like Photoshop or the like to create documents that appear real, and it builds their backstory, builds their contract that they have, the money that they may have in a bank account. And so all of these documents, again, lend this sort of believable aspect to the story. And so for a few months, they'll talk to them and they'll, swoon them with their love and affection, and then something will happen that either they can't come back, so they're gonna ask them for money, or that they're stuck at the border and they're gonna request custom fees. So unfortunately, they spend a lot of time building that sense of trust, and then that's when they start requesting the money.
That's because it's all emotion.
Yes.
And everyone's looking for a soulmate.
Absolutely.
Right? Everyone wants to be the romantic. Everybody wants somebody in their life that, you know, they can share the rest of their life with.
Yes.
There was a friend of mine who I'd gone out with a few weeks ago or a month ago, and she was talking about a friend of hers who was online, and she was dating this guy, but never met him. They were corresponding for months and months and months, and he said that he was in Egypt and trying to come back, and he needed money, and she said, let me be clear with you. I have no money to give you. So don't ask me for any money because I don't have any. And that was the end of the relationship.
Which is great. Unfortunately, some people are so vested in it that it's hard for them to say no. Again, that feeling of losing that possible life partner. I think sometimes if people or women can remember that being able to separate sort of finance and love, and that the two don't mix, and maybe from the very beginning establish the idea that I'm not going to lend anybody money, and have that sort of as a good starting point before they sort of venture into the sort of online relationship situation.
And I think you and I were talking, and you were saying that, you know, it could be a little bit of money, but it could be $500,000 or more.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I have met with a number of victims who have lost of upwards of $600,000-700,000. And what happens is that they'll send $1,000, and then they'll send a little bit more, and then the situation becomes increasing where they're already vested in so much that they want to hang on to try and recover that money. But unfortunately, they keep spending more money than what they end up getting back. And it's only just because they're trying so hard to kind of recover what they've had, or they still believe that eventually this person's going to come to Canada, they're going to bring the money and pay them back.
Constable Horner and I will be back after the break to discuss more about protecting yourself from fraud. Hi, welcome back to Finances Personal. I'm Liz Naumovski. Constable Horner from Crime Prevention Services with Peel Regional Police is here to give us key tips and anecdotes on how to protect ourselves. Now, we were discussing online dating, but there is another layer that I wanted to discuss. One is photos and online dating, and a lot of people sharing nudes.
Yes. One thing we always speak about in crime prevention is that everything is permanent and nothing is private. So understanding that when you are sending any of those images, that you can't be assured that it's been deleted or removed, and knowing who's receiving that, and the abilities or the possibilities that they could share it, and what that could mean for your social media accounts or for your friends and family.
And even if someone promises that they'll never share it, you know that'll never happen.
Yes, yeah, and so I mean that is just the reality with our mobile devices, is that those images are at some point either saved or they're screenshot, and so there's the possibility that they still exist.
And how about young women with Instagram, Facebook, and all the bullying that they go through?
Yes, unfortunately, you know, those mediums are utilized for people to make, you know, very unkind and unfair comments. I think it's important that you know who your friends are on those social media accounts, that obviously you report anybody to those account providers if there is any inappropriate content, and knowing and understanding that, you know, again, everything is permanent and nothing is private.
This is very true. I always say, you know, I was doing a social media policy for work, and I said, you can't remember what you had for breakfast. You have to remember that the internet never forgets.
Yes.
Right? So it goes from one end to the other.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we were talking about door-to-door sales. You thought this was a very important topic to talk about.
It is. As of March 1st, the door-to-door sales in terms of water heater air conditioning contracts are no longer allowed. However, you know, people still may knock on your door. So it's important to know that you don't have to sign any contracts as a result. And even from just a personal safety perspective, that if someone is knocking at your door, you don't have to open it, and that, but to respond. So whether to indicate that you are home and just advise that you either can't come to the door or you're busy, and for them to leave their material. Just because in certain instances with break and enters, people may do the bad guys may do the customary knock to see if someone is actually home, and may make the determination that there's an opportunity there. So leave the door shut and nicely locked, but at least respond to that individual knocking at the door. If you're expecting anybody coming to your home, request identification so you can verify their identity and the purpose for their visit.
You know, it's a really good point. I never thought about it. If somebody's knocking at your door, you pretty much pretend that you're not there because you don't want to talk to them or be confronted by them.
Right.
But that's such a good point, that just acknowledge that they're there so that they know that somebody is here.
Yes, and then that way they realize this is probably not an opportunity we want to act on at this point, and they would leave. So it's important that you say, yes, I'm busy, or I can't come to the door, so they know that your presence is there. And then obviously you don't have to open the door to anybody.
Right.
It's your home and you have the right to not answer or to not open it.
Now, what about CRA? Everyone is getting phone calls,
Yes.
and I've been talking about CRA forever.
Yes.
And people, I believe that it's either seniors that get affected by this one and immigrants that don't quite understand our rules or the language very well.
In my experience, having worked in frauds, everybody is susceptible, unfortunately, because everybody pays their taxes or believing that there's some amount that may be owing. We as Canadians, we're just good and kind in nature, and we don't want to be in trouble, and we want to be honest and fair about what we owe. So when they receive those phone calls, there is that sense of emergency or panic that maybe something is wrong. So I really want to highlight that Canada Revenue, Immigration, and Police do not ask for any money over the phone. We don't ask for Bitcoins as payment. We don't ask for Steam cards or iTunes as payment. And so in those circumstances, when there is that sense of emergency, so where that emotion is involved, we ask people to take that extra step. If they're telling you not to call anybody, that should be a warning sign too. If they're asking you to not keep it a secret or to not reach out to other people who could confirm the story's not true, that should be an alarm as well. And so it's important that you can hang up the phone, contact a friend or a family, explain, and more than likely you'll be able to learn very quickly that it is a scam.
Can we also say that I believe that you won't go to someone's house and arrest them if they get the CRA phone call?
Yes, we don't affect any warrants for CRA in those circumstances. They do say that on the phone, and I understand there is that sense of panic and the victims are fearful and worried. But again, we as police don't knock on your door and effect a warrant for Canada Revenue.
There's another scam that happens, and they may call you in the middle of the night or late at night, and it's your son, your daughter, your grandson has been in a huge accident, traveling, they need emergency funds for an operation or something, they're in the hospital and something needs to be done.
Yes, so the emergency scam. And there was a time where it was the grandparent scam because it was particularly affecting grandparents, but now there's instances where it's husbands or wives that are being contacted saying that their husband's in jail and that they have to pay bail money. Again, as police and as court agencies, we don't accept payments over the phone in terms of any sort of bail or court procedure. But yes, so unfortunately, that's that emotion, that emergency emotion that they play into and that worry, but they will again instruct you not to tell anybody. And so it's important again to realize that that is a scam.
So I think that's the key. When somebody says to you, don't tell anyone,
yes,
and they don't actually really want money, but they want iTunes cards and Bitcoin and everything else,
yes,
and that's a red flag.
It is. They'll be asking for money transfers through any money transfer business. They could be accepting any prepaid credit cards. So those are these forms of payment that they choose because they allow it to be anonymous or difficult to trace.
Didn't you say there was a lottery scam as well?
There is, yes. So it can come by mail, it can come by text message, or it can come by the phone or emails. And ultimately it's this indication that you've won some large sum of money or some vehicle, and they're requesting a form of payment up front. So it's a form of an advance fee scam. So it'll indicate that you need to pay some form of taxes or administration fees or interest or some type of fee that, in the promise that you'll end up getting all this money in your bank account. So people can send thousands and thousands of dollars and never receive this promise of lottery winnings.
And I think there's a letter that goes out along saying that somebody that you're related to has passed away in the UK or
yes,
in Spain or something. That's a similar one.
Yeah, the inheritance scam. And we also have ones where unclaimed bank accounts. You'll get an email indicating that there's this money that's been sitting in an account since you were 14 and it's accrued this insane amount of interest, and as a result, you're going to have all this money owed to you, but they want you to advance funds to get it out of a certain country or clear customs, and as a result, you send money in advance and never get the winnings.
So what's the best thing to do? You get the phone call, just hang up?
Just hang up and talk to somebody and speak to somebody about it, and whether it's calling your local non-emergency police number, contacting the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, but definitely do your due diligence. Whenever there's a circumstance of emotion that's involved, whether it's excitement, the idea of winning a lottery or the emergency, take those extra steps to confirm the information, whether it's Googling things on the internet or it's speaking to loved ones before you send any money.
We'll be right back after this break to discuss internet fraud protection here on Finance is Personal. Hi, welcome back to Finance is Personal. I'm Liz Naumovski. We can't learn enough about protecting ourselves with so many fraud and scam events. Today I'm joined by Constable Horner from Crime Prevention Services with the Peel Regional Police. And so far, we haven't talked about computer phone calls to clean up your computer from viruses.
Yes, so someone may be called at their home indicating that there's an issue with their computer, and as a result, believing that there is, they afford this person remote access, and they end up downloading things onto the computer that, ultimately it could be spyware. They'll ask for a fee for what this person believes is services for antivirus, and in that they're, ultimately leaving their personal identification at risk with this software that's been downloaded on their computer.
To me, this seems like more of a scam for seniors, because I know my father doesn't know his computer that well, and he clicks here and he clicks there, and then something pops up, and he's astounded that something has popped up.
Yes.
I've received that phone call. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. They woke me up, and I just hung up on them and said, "Why are you calling me?" But a lot of other people might be afraid.
Yes, and especially when the pop-up comes up, because sometimes it does appear that their computer is frozen or locked, and that they have to call that phone number in order to correct it or fix it. And in certain circumstances, they're believing that in order to, get that fixed, they have to spend a lot of money, but they're also leaving their personal information at risk on their computer.
Okay, the other thing that actually terrifies me is selling something online.
Yes, I think it's important if women are going to be buying and selling online, that they, understand that they shouldn't be giving out their home address, and definitely shouldn't be giving out any personal information. In Peel Region, we offer buy and sell safe exchange zones, so you can ask someone to meet you at a division, and you can do that safe exchange of that item in a secure place.
And I think you had mentioned to me that people should just use cash because it's easier than waiting for someone to give you a check or giving someone your credit card number.
Yes, so we've had circumstances where it becomes an advance fee scam when you negotiate, for example, buying tickets, where you send money in anticipation of tickets and the tickets never arrive. And they're utilizing either e-transfer or some form of payment. So yes, meeting somebody in person and paying with cash and Canadian cash is probably the best. Unfortunately, there are fraudulent checks out there as well that unfortunately won't go through your account if you take them. And as well, we're experiencing, U.S. counterfeit currency as well. So it's accepting Canadian cash.
The other thing you were talking about that's really, really big for women is distraction theft.
Yes. So if you are in a retail shopping outlet and you have your purse on you, there may be an opportunity where someone may begin to speak with you, and they may have someone else acting with them to either remove your wallet from your purse. If you've left your purse in the grocery cart, again, someone may distract you, and then the other party with them may remove the purse. Or there's instances where you're followed out to the parking lot, and when you place your purse in the car, someone again will distract you, and that other individual will then remove the purse from your car. Same as when you're filling up on gas. When you're turning to look at the pump, it's important that you lock your belongings in the car in case someone comes up and tries to open your car from the other side.
The other thing I see too, working downtown on Bay Street, the food courts are a hub. And a lot of times, especially in the summertime, a lot of women leave their purses on the back of their chair.
Yes.
And a lot of the men actually take their jackets off and drape them over the back of their chair.
Yes.
And I know of 2 women that have had their purses stolen and 2 men that have actually had their wallets stolen. Credit cards were removed and the wallet was actually inserted back.
Yes, so it's good to understand that in all of those circumstances where it's busy and there's high activity, that there will be those opportunities if you leave it on the chair for people to be there to take it at that very moment. So keeping your purse close, even for women carrying a smaller, more personal size that they can actually put over their person as opposed to having to leave it strapped somewhere or leave it on a shoulder where it could easily be pulled off or slipped off. And same for the gentleman, to sort of keep it in a place that's close to the body, and that way then, you know, those people don't have the opportunity to pick it out.
You know, you talked about distraction thefts. I see so many women listening to their phones or texting and walking, and to me, that is one of the prime ways that somebody can do something, whether they attack you or take your purse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, now, I mean, our mobile devices are a large price and a large sum of money, and they're expensive. And so with the earbuds in, you're advertising that you have some form of a device that someone may be appealing to them to steal. But I also think, yes, it doesn't allow you that ability to hear somebody, or for someone to talk to you, or to know your surroundings, and always know your surroundings, and knowing who's there and who's around.
You know, that's important, because I run outside and I'll put my earbuds in, and I always make sure that it's not too loud, because I want to make sure that I hear somebody coming up behind me or somebody coming across, and I think that's a very important thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, we only have a few minutes left. What are the most important things that you can share with women, whether they're young, whether they're old, to protect themselves financially?
I think it's knowing that whenever you are involved in a circumstance where you're thinking of sending someone money or thinking of loaning someone money, to talk to somebody. And if something has happened to you, or it's happening, and you're feeling that sense of embarrassment, that it's okay. And it's okay to talk to somebody, and it's important, because people will understand, but people can help you. But I think in any circumstance where there is sort of that emotional attachment, or there is that sense of emergency, that you take those extra steps and you talk to someone, and you talk to a number of different people, and you talk out those scenarios. But then ask yourselves, where am I at risk by sending this? Where am I at risk by sending this information through an email that's asked me for all my personal information? Or where am I at risk by sending this large sum of money to another country or to another bank account that's not in the person's name that you're actually communicating with? So sometimes it's all these things that you need to sort of ask yourself.
Whether it's a romance scam, investment scam, a random phone call asking you for your personal information, or if your email has been hacked, remember, bullies, scammers, and fraudsters do not discriminate. Everyone is fair game. Don't be a victim. If it doesn't feel right, or the outcome is too good to be true, just don't do it. Educating yourself and asking a lot of questions is an important step in protecting yourself and your financial future. Don't make quick decisions, and don't feel intimidated. This information is so important that it must be shared. Tell 10 people about this fraud and scam show and ask them to share it. Knowledge is power and protection. I'd like to thank Constable Horner for joining me, and you, our viewers, for watching. I'm Liz Naumovski. Bye for now.